I'd like to thank you for inviting me on the show. It's such an honour to be here, and I'd just like to say that when I'm not playing Xbox with my mate Thor, I really like to listen to my favourite podcast, Pop Culture Pasta. Hey, Doug! Doug! Oh, that's right, Doug's dead.
Pop Culture Pastor.
So, Cody, I told myself, and I'm still telling myself, don't talk about Ashton Kutcher, Mila Kunis, and Danny Masterson. Not going to talk about it. Don't talk about it, Dave. Don't talk. You can't win in this conversation.
It is a hot topic right now.
Well, when you see the list of all the people that wrote him some sort of character thing, and then we're talking about it, though. See, I said I'm not going to talk about it.
Don't you dare talk about it.
It's weird, one, because I've never had a friend that got in this much trouble.
Yeah.
That was like looking down the barrel of a sentencing for something pretty severe and pretty, if the allegations are true, which a court of law says they were, are pretty gross, pretty disgusting.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm thinking of, would I do that? Would I do that for a friend? And I think I would, just to be like, hey, I know the courts have decided he did this, and that's terrible if he did, but this is how I knew him, and I've seen him do all these good things, so I understand that sort of angle. But oh man, what a tough position to be in, and then to be outed by everybody, because what you didn't hear was like the rest of the list of people who also did that. It was just all on Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis.
When that broke, I decided then and there, because I really hadn't thought much about it, I will not put you in that situation where you'll have to write me a character letter.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Because, that's a heavy burden.
Yeah, it is. Well, I thought it made me think about those people. So among the other ones were the parents on that 70s show, Kurtwood Smith, and whoever the lady is.
Kitty.
Kitty. Yeah, that's her character's name. Several people from the show. In fact, the only one who didn't decline to, say something for him was the main character guy. Topher Grace. Yeah.
Which no one liked Topher.
Well, yeah. Well, there's a Scientology angle there, which I'm not going to get into, but because I don't really care about all that.
Deborah Jo Rupp is Kitty's name.
Yeah.
I've seen her live in person.
Yeah. Well, anyways, the heat got so hot, they had to put out another statement. They did a video, and at that point, you're just like, no, you shouldn't say anything else. You said what you wanted to say for a friend. He's going to prison for a long time. That's enough.
You really have to preface your letter like, hey, this is the avenue that I've seen this guy function in. I don't know if he's guilty or not, but this is the person I know. And the thing is, whether you go down the list of horrific crimes that can be committed, those people don't act that way towards everyone they encounter. A serial killer isn't going to kill everybody they encounter.
Right.
There's people that they're just, hey, buddy, and walk on by. Just because someone doesn't present that way to you doesn't mean that they're not capable of it.
Yeah. So what a mess, though. Just terrible stuff. And of course, you think about the victims and you want to, of course, sympathize with them and say, well, and Ashton and Mila Kunis did that in their second, in their statement about it, their video statement. So of course we're doing that. And they kind of framed it in the such that, hey, we knew this was for the sentencing. We knew he was guilty of these things. It was just for the judge, and that begs a question of like, how did the media get this? If it was just for the judge's eyes, is that a thing they give up? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. But
yeah.
Anyways, this is Pop Culture Pastor, and that was just something on my mind, and I didn't want to talk about it, and we did talk about it, but I'm going to stop talking about it because
I feel we are very vague.
Yeah, the courts have spoken, and Danny Masterson's going away for a long time. Appeals pending, I'm sure.
Yes.
Because there's always appeals. Let's get into the real news, though. There's real news going on here other than criminals going to prison. A new report says a PR firm has been paying Rotten Tomatoes critics for positive reviews for over 5 years.
Where was DC spending their money?
Yeah.
That's my question.
Right. Now things start to make a little sense, don't they? This was as noted, reported by Vulture. It looks like a PR firm has manipulated movie scores on Rotten Tomatoes by paying the critics directly. This has been happening for years. A PR firm named Bunker 15 is said to pay as much as $50 for a single Rotten Tomatoes review, which...
That's low.
Dang, man. You can't hold out for a little bit more?
If they want to buy mine, I'll give them a series of 5 movies for $50, just because that's the kind of guy I am. I'm not going to rob you blind.
But now, does it make sense, the Flash reviews? Because the Flash was getting good reviews for a while, and then it started, as it got more wide release, the score started to go down because they couldn't possibly pay all these people. I mean, some of this, so all of the way Rotten Tomatoes works, it compiles all these reviews across the internet, and then it has like the big reviewers, right? So people from like these huge publications. And so, of course, you would think they're not going to pay those people off.
Can slide a few doll hairs to the Rolling Stone.
I mean, we're just sitting here as pastors with our little podcast. Hey, we got some people listening. Hey, throw a few doll hairs at us.
Yes.
We'll go easy on your movie. I just told you I can go easy on your movie while still not lying. I can be honest about it. I was just honest about Mission Impossible, that Mission Impossible movie. Like, hey, it's not supposed to be Citizen Kane, but it was fun. Go see it.
There you go. That is the not so harsh review for Mission Impossible.
Who made that money? We need to send them a bill.
Yeah.
Who made that movie? I mean, not money. Did I say money? Movie. Who made that movie? Send them a bill. It's worth noting that Rotten Tomatoes does have rules that prohibit reviewing based on any financial incentive.
It's weird times.
Yeah.
So this is happening, like college sports and professional sports, gambling stuff is creeping up everywhere. Then some journalistic sites / news outlets have released information that they might have faked some polls to draw in viewership and eyes to their reports. It's hard to trust anything anymore.
The internet ruined everything. I know we've talked about this before, but let me take you back to the late 80s when we kept hearing about the information superhighway. We were all going to be surfing the information superhighway. Everything. We're all going to be so much smarter. That's what they kept telling us about the internet. It was going to make everyone smarter. We were going to be so much better informed, and I think we completely got it wrong. I don't think anybody realized what was going to happen. And you're right. We're in like the undiscovered country now. We're in the middle of a large uncontrolled experiment that we don't know how it's going to end, but it doesn't look good. We got fake news. We got fake reviews. We got sports guys who are because it's so easy to gamble.
Oh yeah.
These kids in college that are betting on their own games, you do it from your phone.
Do we blame inventor of the internet, Albert Gore, for all this?
Well, just as a general rule, when in doubt, I blame Al Gore for everything. And his wife, Tipper. It's probably Alan Tipper's fault.
Oh, I just remember him claiming, I invented the internet. And I'm like,
you remember when that was a thing to be proud of? I bet Al doesn't claim that anymore, do you? Do you think?
Oh.
Al said, I never said that. I did not invent the internet, sirs. Director Paul Schrader, who's also a critic, so he's directed some movies, but he's also a critic. He spoke out against Rotten Tomatoes, which he says is part of a broken system. He said this, quote, "The system is broken. Audiences are dumber. Normal people don't go through reviews like they used to. Rotten Tomatoes is something the studios can game, so they do."
Don't blame him.
Yeah. He's not wrong. I don't know why he's got a bash on the audience, though. What was that? What's the point of saying audiences are dumber? Is that just another reference to someone piling on comic book movies? Are they just mad? I'm a real auteur, and all these idiots just want to watch Captain America and the Avengers. I'm like, I don't know, Paul Schrader. I don't even know who you are. Make better movies.
Burn.
I mean, seriously though, look, I honestly don't know who Paul Schrader is, and I'm sure he's a fine dude.
Probably the best of the best.
But come on, can we get past this? Comic book movies are struggling now because guess what? The movie studios that make them are getting dumber, and they're not making them as well, and they think audiences are dumb, but they're not. The fact that these comic book movies aren't doing as well proves that our audiences aren't dumb, right? And am I using good logic?
I would say so.
Star Wars may be turning some things around. Ahsoka's good. It's not perfect.
Okay, so you do know Paul Schrader.
Do I? What does he direct?
So he wrote Taxi Driver for Marty Scorsese.
Of course, he's an older guy, so this makes more sense.
There's a lot of these Marty-esque films and that he's a part of. So either he wrote or directed.
We've talked a lot about that already. I'm kind of over these dudes who think they're serious auteurs and everything that they don't like is somehow less of an art. There's art in comic books and Stan Lee and
oh yeah.
I'm not down with it, and I could do without it. You're so much better, I know. So, have you seen this Martha Stewart flap?
What?
Martha Stewart. She got in trouble for something she posted on Instagram.
Martha's getting in trouble?
Yeah, 82 years old. She's on vacation. She's just living her best life. And she's taking she's on a cruise around Greenland.
Oh,
And she shared a few vacation photos, and she got some pushback because she posted a picture and she's on this boat and there's beautiful scenery behind her. She's sitting on a nice couch like you have on a cruise boat. And she's holding up her little cocktail drink. She's got a little drink because, she's on vacation. She's having an adult beverage. Drinking responsibly, I'm sure, is Martha. And she posted this: end of the first cruise from Swan Hellenic Cruises into a very beautiful fjord on the east coast of Greenland. Fjord's a weird word.
That is.
And I like saying fjord. She wrote that last Monday on her social media site.
Oh, she's leaving a carbon footprint, isn't she?
And she said, we actually captured a small iceberg for our cocktails tonight. So there was so the boat, I'm assuming either the people in the boat or maybe people in her crew got a piece of the iceberg that they were exploring, and they used it to cool their drinks.
Nope.
And of course, people did not like that. Here's one. Here was one of the comments. I generally love Martha and the excesses of her life. Which I thought was a funny thing to say. Oh, you know what? I love George Clooney and the excesses in his life. She goes on, because she's about beautiful gardens, homes, and food, but wealthy white people drinking their iceberg cocktails while the planet is in flames is a bit tone deaf. The planet is in flames? Come on. I mean, do we have to do this every time?
Well, hyperbole is a thing.
It's so hyperbolic. Because every time there's a natural disaster, I know it's always climate change's fault.
So she is a celebrity that has puzzled me. In the 90s, she was so boring. She was basic.
Basic.
And then she goes to a posh prison for insider trading.
She's still rich, by the way.
Gets a show with Snoop Dogg, and now I'm supposed to think she's America's sweetheart? No! I had to live through the 90s and boring Martha.
Okay, let's go back to what that person wrote. I generally love Martha and the excesses of her life because she's about beautiful gardens, homes, and food. Now, hold on. In a time when rich people literally go by the motto, eat the rich. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of people in this country hate rich people. Yeah. How did she get a pass? You're right. How did she get a pass?
I don't know.
She literally went to prison for gaming the Wall Street system, which really only rich people can do.
Yes.
Or senators and Congress people.
And I mean, she still has a fancy line of bedding and curtains.
And somehow she does game the system. And people were upset about this, but chances are you didn't even hear about it.
I did not.
You only know because I'm bringing it up, and it's going to be gone in a week. Nobody will remember, and we'll all love Martha Stewart again. And you're right. Why? What? How does she get a pass?
Only older ladies watched Martha. I don't know how this has come about.
It's sort of weird because she comes from that same time frame of fame that Donald Trump comes from. And the different versions of those two that exist now compared to what they were. Like Donald Trump's the same sort of concept where at no time before 2014 was anyone under the impression that Donald Trump wasn't a nerf herder. No, at no time. Nobody took him seriously. You would see Donald Trump on Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. Hello, I'm Robin Leach. Welcome. And they'd show Donald Trump. He'd be like, look at this guy. Look at this goofball. He was always a goober. And then he got the TV show, and he was still a goober, but we liked.
You fired.
People liked the goober show because they'd be like, you're fired. Because it was Donald Trump. And then I woke up one morning, and he's a political mastermind. And, all the people in my church, not my church, but all the people in church think he's the biggest apostle of Jesus. And you're just, what's happening right now? No, he's a nerf herder.
It's weird. Don't uplift celebrities or people in general.
And Martha has had the same sort of dynamic, weird conversion where what she started off as, and then nothing really happened except she went to prison. Now she's more popular than ever. And it's weird. It's strange, but here we are.
I assume Martha is an all right person.
Celebrity's weird, huh?
It is.
Yeah. All right. We're done with the news and the intro stuff. We need to go out to the lobby.
Sweet.
Let's go out to the lobby, get ourselves a snack.
Chocolate covered raisins.
Nope. And answer listener questions. We'll be right back. We'll meet you out there.
Welcome to the lobby.
Okay, we're out in the lobby. We're going to get our snacks. I'm feeling a Mountain Dew Code Red, although no movie theaters have that. At least not the ones we go to.
Yeah. You got to be a fancy elitist.
Y'all come in
movie theater
in those big towns where you have the whatchamacallit machines with all the choices, but then you don't have Mountain Dew because those are Coke machines. You get Mellow Yellow.
Yeah.
And Cherry Mellow Yellow is just not the same.
Ew. Go with the lime. It's a risk, but take it.
Lime? Really?
Yeah.
Huh. That's
Lime Mellow Yellow. Didn't know it was legit until I tried it.
What are those machines called that Coke has? They have a special name.
Fancy machines.
The fancy pop machines. You know which ones we're talking about. We live in a small town.
Yes.
All right. We need to hit these questions. Jim Smith asked a question. Hi, Jim. Yeah, we don't. I think Jim's from New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's a relatively new listener, like within the last few months. But Jim's a good guy, as far as I can tell.
Okay.
On social media, which really isn't, I can't get an accurate depiction, but I'm assuming Jim's a solid dude. Because he listens to us. Everyone that listens to us is an awesome person, right?
I like to think so.
He says, if you guys were not pastors, what job would you want?
So I do have a second job.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is
you got to pick a different one.
Which is being a therapist. And
he's good at it.
We're not going to claim that yet. Still fairly new. Honestly, I think some sort of teaching, probably college professor.
Okay. What would you teach?
Philosophy.
Give me some of the humanities, bro.
Oh, yeah.
The humanities are the reason I'm a believer. So just as a side note, you're just getting this story for free.
You're welcome.
But I went back to KU after 10 years out of high school. I was a non-traditional student, and I took some classes. And I mind you, I didn't grow up in church. The most I knew about Jesus was from Christmas movies and carols and such. And I took some humanities classes, and I took Western Civilization 1 and 2. And in 2, we read, in 1, I think we read the Pentateuch, the first few books of the Bible.
The first 5.
The first 5? Yeah, that's what that word means. I don't think we read the whole thing. We read the first few. Genesis, Exodus,
I hope you didn't have to read Leviticus.
We did not read Leviticus. Maybe it was just the first two. Anyways, my first exposure to the Bible is at the University of Kansas, which is hilarious because church people think, oh, that's a liberal bastion of Christian hate.
It's the Berkeley of the Midwest.
But if it wasn't for that, my exposure to that wouldn't be. They made us read all sorts of things. I read lots of philosophers. I read the Quran, read parts of the Quran. I read many things there. And honestly, if it wasn't for the humanities, I don't know that my brain would have turned towards God like that. My first exposure to a higher authority really is in humanities classes. Anyways, this has been a commercial for Save the Humanities.
Yes.
I know we're trying to get rid of all those at a time when humans don't have time anymore to sit and think about life. That's a mistake, y'all. Save the humanities.
So what job would you have?
Well, when I was younger, I thought I was going to be the point guard for the Chicago Bulls.
They needed one.
BJ Armstrong wasn't going to be the guy forever, and I just knew that it was my time after that.
Like Ron Harper could handle the ball, but he didn't have handles.
By the time I'm 25, I'm thinking, well, Jordan's retired, so I don't want to play with him anyways now. What's the point? Now, if I wasn't a pastor now at this point in my life, what would I want to do? I don't know. I've never really thought about it now because going into ministry wasn't what I wanted to do.
It's what he was called to do.
Right. And it's not that I was opposed to it. It's just not something I ever desired. And so I haven't really thought about what I would desire to do now. But I guess if I was, I would say I love movies. I've always loved movies. I wish I could have grew up in this time when we have all this technology where someone can use their phone to make a movie. I wish I grew up in this time where you have all these opportunities to do more creative things, because I would have loved to try my hand at stuff like that. But
I was going to say, I could see you being a screenwriter.
Yeah, that'd be fun, wouldn't it? I'd have to learn how to write better. Next question. This comes from Kyle Kessinger right here in Kansas. How did Dave Rimbold end up in Chanute, Kansas? So I'm not from here in this small town. I grew up in Topeka and Lawrence, bigger cities.
I can make up a good story.
He said, did you randomly throw a dart at a map? Or did your car break down and some locals took you in?
I don't know if you've seen Children of the Corn.
It happened a lot like that.
Yes.
A lot like that. There was a ceremony out in the corn that you couldn't see.
Yeah.
Some weird things happened. There may or may not have been drinking of blood. I don't remember a lot of it. No, my wife was from the area. She's not from the town we live in. She was from a little town north of here called Iola.
Which is just as big, if not bigger.
And we got married and we had our first kid, my lovely daughter. And we just kind of felt drawn back to small town life, her back to, and me. I just always kind of felt in my bones that I wanted to live in a smaller town when I had kids, because I'd grown up in cities. And frankly, Lawrence, Kansas is an interesting place. It's an interesting place. And up till about the age of 25, or, when you're still an immature adult, I'll call them immature adults. It's a great place. It's fun. Lots of things to do. Lots of young people like you. But once you get past a certain age, it becomes really annoying. Because Lawrence, Kansas is a particular kind of place. It's a college town. I still have lots of friends there, and I love them. And I do love going back to visit. I just didn't want to live there anymore. And boy, when the pandemic, after the pandemic, it gets super political at times. And I don't want to be around that. My small town's political enough. Goodness.
Yeah.
And so I was more of wanting a small town place to raise my kids. And you're not free of some of the stuff. It just happens less frequently, to be honest.
He wanted a place that was a lot like where the Goonies were.
Yeah. I wanted to go a place where we could go where people go a lot. A place where you could lay down all your worries. Sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you want to go wherever. Anyways. Sorry, that was a Cheers reference.
But Cheers doesn't take place in the small town.
Nope. Boston. But it could have. It would have been just as good of a show if it did.
Maybe.
Yeah, more interesting stuff, I think. Could have played more off that small town vibe. I think there was a show based on a bar in a small town. I think it was called Jericho. Except there was other stuff going on, like a nuclear war and all that. Jackson Chauncey, a geek of the round table.
Friend of the show,
says, when is the Don Bluth episode?
That's a good question, Jackson. As anyone that was born in the 80s and lived through the 90s, you have this segment of time where you're like, I don't know if this is a Disney movie or a Don Bluth movie. Are they two separate categories? Are they the same thing? It was hard to say. Weird times. So I'm looking forward to that episode.
I mean, as much as I want to talk about the secret of Nim.
Rockadoodle? All dogs go to heaven? Land Before Time?
American Tail?
Yeah, I mean, we're listing off some classics.
Maybe. Oh, no, that wasn't Don Bluth. I was about to say
See?
The Hobbit.
It is
Hobbit.
so hard
The old
to
Hobbit
tell.
cartoon, but that wasn't Don Bluth. That was a different guy. Yeah, I don't know. I need to do some studying on Don Bluth. Our last question that we're going to answer out here in the lobby comes from Wendy Garrett.
Hi, Wendy.
Wendy goes to my church. She's lovely, nice, great person. Her family's great.
Never heard of her until today.
Her husband Levi, shout out. I'll give Levi a shout out too. He's good people.
Glad
and their
glad
kids
to
are
know
all
that.
awesome. I'm just giving them all a shout out. We're gonna go right down the list. She says, in reference to the Narnia series coming to Netflix,
I've heard of it.
do you think Netflix will ruin it or make it greater?
Well, you're not going to make it greater. So let's lower the expectation
okay,
bar.
that's fair. I think that's fair.
You
I
can
think
modernize it.
Maybe
Make
it would
more
be
relatable.
It would be better if we compared it. Do we think it'll be better or worse than the movies they made, which they didn't go through the whole series?
Oh,
they only made
no.
3 of them?
2 or 3, yeah.
And I think it has to be better than those, right? Because it seems better suited for a streaming show.
It does. The issue you run into no matter what with these young adult children's books is children grow up and they grow up fast.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The other issue with that particular story with Narnia is, so it's written, if you're unaware, it's written by C.S. Lewis, who's like a Christian philosopher, for lack of a better title.
Clive Staples Lewis.
He's like one of J.R.R. Tolkien's best friends. They're buddies.
Yes.
And so they're both writing these kind of stories simultaneously, I believe. Am I getting my history right?
They're in the same time period, yeah.
Yeah. And so he writes Narnia, Tolkien's writing the Lord of the Rings stuff. And Lewis has a much less subtle allegory story to Christ going on here with Aslan the lion. Now, I think the key to making a good adaptation is for it to walk that line in between subtle and obvious. And I think that the problem with that is you're going to, so Greta Gerwig, I guess, is going to be the showrunner for this, which I was excited about.
Barbie.
Because because she's a secular filmmaker. She's in demand. So like, this is good that because my fear is that you get a Christian to make it and then they hit you over the head with the Christian stuff, which is not telling the story the best way.
Not saying she's not a Christian, but you wouldn't know just based off the films that she has made.
She's going to make the movie like a piece of art, which is what you want. And so, Wendy, I think there's a great chance that this could be a very, very good adaptation that walks in that middle line where she just tells a story well and does the best she can possibly do at adapting C.S. Lewis's story. And then the allegories are all still there, and we don't have to hit people over the head with a Bible, right?
Yes. I think that she'll make a great adaptation. I just wonder if we modernize it. That's where I'm at.
Now, how would you do that?
You just move the story to our time because clearly it takes place like pre-World War II.
You just blew up my mind.
So, I mean, are we going to set it in a more modern setting, or are we going to go back in time and make it old-timey?
Hear me out. Hear me out. The whole story starts off with the Pavensi kids, and they get shipped away because of the Blitz, right?
Okay.
The Germans are bombing England, and they get shipped out into the country to the weird people house, where this wardrobe is, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And what if, could you even make this about like Syrian refugees? How wild would that be?
It's a game changer.
I know people get upset because then we're like, oh, you're race swapping. And I'm just, as long as we've been pretty clear, if you stay true to the heart of the story and the characters, which you could do that pretty easily, because for all intents and purposes, the Pavensi kids are refugees. They just don't get sent out of their country. They get sent out of the cities, which my grandma was one of those people. As a kid in England, she got sent away from her parents out of the city into the countryside.
Smart move by parents.
Yeah. So that happened a lot. That was a real thing that happened. Oh, man. I love that idea. I could get behind it, but boy, that would be a hornet's nest for them.
So again, that's I have a few questions. That's one of them.
Yeah. That would be interesting. That'd be interesting. We'll see. I think bottom line, I think it has a great chance of being much better than the movies.
I will say Doctor Who did a great adaptation.
They did an adaptation?
They had an episode that was loosely based around Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, yes.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. If there was an 8 billion Doctor Who episodes, I'd say I'd go back and rewatch some Doctor Who or watch for the first time, but I'm not going to.
I think it's Matt Smith.
Life's too short. I'm going to wait until heaven.
When I've got you can just watch the episode. You don't have to watch all the ones before it. It's kind of a standalone.
That's not how I roll. That's not how I roll. I want to watch the whole show, but I'm not going to do it in my lifetime. I'm going to have to wait till eternity, and then we'll just watch Doctor Who together with Jesus.
I don't know that's how that works.
All right. Well, it does in my heaven. All right. We're done with this. We're going to go back into the studio, and we're going to get on with the main subject. We're talking about rest this week.
Yes.
We'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, we're back. We're ready. We're going to talk about rest. And the reason we're going to talk about rest is last week I got sick.
You got struck down.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible. It was just a head cold. And I got all the junk and all the stuff that goes along with a head cold is terrible, which, I'm glad it wasn't like the COVID thing where you lose your taste and your smell. It was just a head cold. But the head cold makes you feel so terrible, especially when it's summer. It's still hot. It's just the worst.
It is.
In my office, like here at this radio station, it's not air conditioned. And so it's just, all of that. I have a fan. It's not terrible, but it's not super comfortable, especially when you're sick. The first few days of the week, I just wasn't feeling it. And then when it came time to record, I think the day of when we usually record, a good friend, it was someone, a member of the Assemblies of God certified ministers geek group.
Oh,
on Marco Polo.
That's a thing.
It's definitely a thing. Becca, she listens to the show. Her and her husband David. We've actually used some of David's questions in the lobby.
Hi, Becca and David.
She said, "You should take a rest. You shouldn't record this week." And we're Christians and Sabbath is a thing.
It really is. Although it really isn't talked about that much within mainline topics of sermons and stuff.
But why don't we? Because God literally created us. This is what we believe, that we were created to need that rest. And we live in a society. We lift up busyness.
We do.
And in fact, if you could Google successful podcasts, how to have a successful podcast, and almost every list you'd come across, one of the things would be consistent. Don't miss weeks, right? Don't miss whatever your time period is. Don't miss it. Yeah, there is this pressure of, well, we need to be consistent. We need to put out content, the same content every week. And that's permeated in our culture because I'll call it busyness. We wear busyness as like a badge, and the anxiety and the depression that comes with it, we wear it like as a badge of honor because it shows our busyness, right? Oh, my anxiety, I'm not feeling good because I'm so busy, right? And we post that on social media because we live in a victim culture and we want it all works together.
It does. And it creates a rhythm that it works, but it really doesn't. And it feels right because everyone around us is going through it. And we just assume this is what our lot in life should be. And yet it really isn't what our lot in life should be.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, you do need to work. Yes, you need to contribute to the greater good of society and bring home the money to put bread and bacon on your table. But there should be a shutdown period.
I follow this hospital chaplain on Twitter, and he wrote something pretty profound that I shared on my Facebook, and I'll just read it to you. He said this. Let me give you his name. JS Park on Twitter, hospital chaplain. He says this. I've been a hospital chaplain now for 8 years at hundreds of deathbeds. I want to tell you something I've witnessed. At a deathbed, if my patient can communicate, they show they're dying two deaths, the one they're dying and then the death of the life they really wanted to live. And I think that's an epidemic in our country. When we get ready to leave this life, we're mourning the life we're leaving and then the life we wanted to lead. I think in this country it's so bad because we literally work our lives away.
We do.
And not just like at your job or your career, although it can be your career. If you're ambitious, if you have ambition, you'll work extra hours away from your family.
You'll go back to school.
Right. Like, look, we're not innocent of these things, Cody and I.
No.
Like we're literally here recording content late at night away from our families because we want this to work. And yes, there's a mission to this that we can turn and make noble and, say it however we want to say it. But at the end of the day, can I really say that I'm not taking part in this? And when Becca said that on our Marco Polo group, she said, you should take a break. All I could think of was God and the Sabbath. There's a interest in Psalm 23 where he says he makes me lie down in green pastures. And I love the usage of the word make. It wasn't he lets you lie down in green pastures. He makes you lie down because if you don't take your rest, you'll break.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, you'll just have to lie down.
With technology, something that like IT departments have drilled into me, just because I've been around a few. Your computers, your cell phones, they need to be turned off every so often.
Yeah.
They run better. They run faster when they have had time to cool down. Also get updates and all that jazz. Your body needs that too. If not more so than your electronics. So please take care of yourself. Self-care. It's important.
Yeah. So all that being said, my good friend Becca said, take a rest. And I knew immediately when she said it, I was like, you know what? She's right. And so we just made a decision last week. We're going to take a week off. And we didn't record anything for the radio.
No.
Nothing. We recorded nothing last week. We just took a week off and it was good. We needed it. And now we're back here. We're recording the pod and we wanted to talk about it. We wanted to talk about what is this role of rest in our lives. Most of us don't get it. We don't get enough of it. And I wanted to just talk about this. I saw this article just as if, this just needed to be what we talked about. I come across this article about Miley Cyrus.
My friend Miley.
Your friend Miley.
I'll claim her.
She was talking on TikTok. She was doing a series of TikTok videos basically explaining to her fans kind of the same thing we're saying of why she was taking a break.
Even celebrities need breaks.
And she said this. She's talking about her old schedule from her work days when she was doing Hannah Montana stuff.
It was the best of both worlds, and yet might have been the worst of both worlds.
12 or 13 years old. Here's what she said. On a regular Friday, she had to wake up at 5:30 a.m. to get her hair and makeup done for a long day of at least 8 separate interviews, as well as shoots and meetings, with the last one starting at 6:15 p.m. The next day, a Saturday, no less, Cyrus says from 7 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., she was also booked for unspecified activities before ultimately only having one day off before she had to start filming Hannah Montana again the following Monday. So Monday through Friday, she had their normal Hannah Montana schedule. Then they're scheduling all-day meetings and interviews for Saturday. She's 12 years old.
Ridiculous.
She said this on her TikTok. She said, I'm a lot of things, but lazy ain't one of them. So I do think this girl deserves a little endless summer vacation. And what she's talking about is she's not touring. She says, I'm taking a break. I'm taking a Sabbath. And I think, wow, that's actually stunningly mentally healthy.
It is. I imagine she would say there was a point that it became too much. And when you know that it is something that is too much, and you're able to set limits and boundaries so that way it doesn't happen again. You're taking control of your physical, emotional, and mental well-being. Again, self-advocacy is something that we struggle with, especially when it comes to proper amounts of work, fun time, and mental relaxation.
What we're getting at is rest is important. And Cody's speaking as a mental health advocate right now, a mental health therapist. And this, we're not even getting to the part where pastors, where, Sabbath is a real thing that God says was important for his people.
My friend Jesus took naps.
He did. It doesn't matter where you're at. If you're not coming at it from a faith angle, at least come at it from the mental health angle and say rest is important. And so we took this rest last week, and then we just wanted to come back and talk about it because we just don't talk about it enough.
We don't.
So we wanted to take a look at it through the lens of pop culture because that's what we do. So we figured the first thing we should talk about is examples of rest in pop culture, like where a movie or a character this is a theme. This is a real thing. So do you have any things? Because I have a small list here.
For me, there was some negative perceptions in pop culture with rest.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let's talk about those first because this goes to our culture. It's going to go along with what our culture is lying to us about, where busy. You got to be busy. It's all about the content.
The person that first came to my mind was Grandpa Joe from Willy Wonka.
Yeah, because he's a meme.
Yeah, dude rested for like 30 years.
Yeah.
And then, you're going to maybe get a chocolate factory? Let me go with you, buddy.
Yeah, nobody makes fun of Grandpa Joe like Americans do.
Yes.
We're all over Grandpa Joe. Like, get out of here, you deadbeat. Charlie ain't taking you to the chocolate factory. He actually did. He would.
Yeah.
He did take Grandpa.
How nice of Charlie.
Yeah, it was. But you're right. So, like, even through our memes, we're attacking Grandpa Joe.
Like
Grandpa Joe's just living his best life.
Kids in movies and sitcoms, whenever they're in school and they doze off, that lazy high schooler. How dare you be sleeping during class, or you have your priorities out of whack, which they might. But there's also a culture that says, high schoolers should be out doing this activity, this sport, and this recreational thing that they're not of legal age to do, but by George, it's part of the high school experience. And so we keep uplifting that. Also, if you sleep, Freddy Krueger will get you.
Oh, my goodness.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Look, that movie scarred me when I was a child.
Crazy thing is, Freddy, he's in 7 minutes of that movie. That movie's long.
Is he really only in 7 minutes of Nightmare on Elm Street, the original?
I believe it's the original that he's only in 7 minutes of.
Oh, that is wild. That is wild. Now that I'm like thinking back through it and re-scarring myself. You're right. He's not in that. Like, you hear the claws scraping metal things,
but you don't actually see Freddy on screen that much.
Johnny Depp gets more screen time in that movie.
He does.
Then he gets swallowed by a bed
because he didn't get enough quality rest.
Nobody was getting quality rest in that town.
And then the last one that kind of came to my mind was like the Disney princesses.
Okay, explain.
They're sleeping forever. Like Sleeping Beauty, Snow White eats the apple. She's in a slumber forever. I mean,
Prince Charming.
Yeah,
the prince who gets woken up, right? No, that's Sleeping Beauty. Never mind. I don't know what I'm talking about.
They're interchangeable.
Isn't there one where the dude's asleep and she's got to kiss him? Or am I thinking a Little Mermaid? I don't know. I get them all confused.
But yes, like it's a poison if you have to sleep.
Walt was just stoking the fires of capitalism, wasn't he?
He was.
You jerk. I'm just kidding.
Now, I do have one positive.
Okay.
It comes from my bestie for the resty, Neil Gaiman.
Neil Gaiman, right?
Sandman.
Writer of Sandman.
Yes.
And American Gods. What else? So many things.
Which, I mean, what's the Amazon show with David Tennant? You do know.
I do know. Just look up David Tennant. It's not so hard. It's not like we're recording a podcast.
Good Omens. That's it.
Good Omens. Yeah. Is he in that show?
He co-wrote it.
Yeah. Okay.
Book. And so Neil Gaiman has written a bunch of stuff. Coraline. Sandman. The main character is the dude that helps people sleep. When he's gone, the world becomes chaotic. And then some people fall into an eternal slumber, which isn't good. But there's some people that cannot get a good night's rest. Man. And so you need a good night's rest for everything to be in balance and in perspective. And so when he gets freed from his captivity, things slowly get restored back to the way they should be.
Yeah. There are some movies where rest is a factor with one of the characters where I don't know if it's positive or negative. Like if we're talking about Into the Wild, for instance.
Yes.
Where it's all about, I mean, it's based on a true story about this guy who wants to get out of society because he can't take it, right? There's something, he senses that there's something wrong with the world, basically what we're saying about American life. And he says, I got to get out of this culture. I got to get out of society. And he meets all these people on the way, and that's kind of beside the point for what we're talking about. But he ends up in Alaska, and he succeeds in his mission to be outside of society. But then he's still kind of confronted with this wild world.
Wild world, and the realization you still need people.
Yeah, you need people. And he didn't really get that part of the equation.
Oh, he should have got it with the hippies and the old man.
Yeah, he made
that
some
one's
mistakes.
heartbreaking.
But that movie is kind of hit and miss as far as, well, is this a good thing? Is this not a good thing? But really, his desire to escape the bustle of the hustle of the real world, of the civilized world, is not bad. He actually, before things turn south for him, he's about as happy as he's ever been when he's living in a bus out in the wild of Alaska. It just goes bad. It goes wrong, and he needs help, and there's no help around.
No help.
What about The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, the Ben Stiller movie? Now, it's nothing like the short story, but the movie makes a kind of glorifies daydreaming.
It does. Which,
in our culture, we actually have a negative view of daydreaming. Daydreaming's bad.
So Scrubs, JD daydreams all the time, and he gets made fun of by everyone on it because he spends too much time daydreaming in their perspective. There's some quality things about when you are with yourself and your own thoughts that can happen. We did a story on the radio. I don't know if it's been in one of the pods or not it was about boredom.
Well, we're experiencing that.
We are. But
people aren't bored anymore? Is that what you mean? Or?
Well, no, like profound boredom. That was the
right. Yeah, I remember that. I remember talking about it.
So profound boredom, literally you get some great deep insights into yourself and to the world around you because you're not preoccupied by something.
So that's what we've lost over the years is this idea. So that the article we talked about, the study we talked about it was when we were bored that we would do all of our analyzation of our life. So whether you were stopped at a red light or you were in line at a fast food joint or at the grocery store, now all that time gets taken up by our phone. When we're bored, we feel the twinge of boredom and we immediately go to the phone or the technology. Well, back in the days before that was the study said that's when we actually did our introspection, where we would analyze how our day went, how we reacted to things, how we thought about things. And it was this deep kind of thinking that we used to do that has gone away with our lack of boredom. And this is a real problem with the younger generation. Because me and you, Cody, can still remember a day before that where we're still conscious of that. And we say, you know what, I'm going to turn my phone off and leave it in another room because I value some of this quiet time with myself. Mm-hmm. Whereas kids, they don't know that. They don't know anything. In fact, now when your 2-3-year-old starts crying, what do? You turn on the TV, give them an iPad.
Which, by the way, might want to slow down with that.
Yeah. And so there's really something to all this. And what I love about the idea of The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, the way Ben Stiller did it was, hey, daydreaming is not bad. Allow your kids to be bored.
Yes.
Let them dream. Let them build their imagination.
Another show that popped into my mind while you were speaking, literally The Mandalorian, they can be busy, but they're also trying to get away from societal norms. And the way the last season ended.
Yeah. They're literally sitting on a stoop.
Yeah.
Like they did in the old days.
And I'm like, Mando gets it.
We just needed Grogu to start playing the jugs. Jug band. What about Eat, Pray, Love? Julia Roberts, based on a famous book about now.
I avoid most Julia Roberts.
I have not seen
flicks.
this movie myself, but if I'm understanding the plot of that story right, it's that she kind of goes through a life crisis, and she's goes out on this just adventure basically, where she just kind of forgets about society in a sort of way, and just goes traveling and constant focusing on these things: eating, praying, and just loving life and loving people.
Which I do love the positive outlook that is promoted with that, because I do find in more busy lifestyles, there's a heavy dose of cynicism.
Yeah.
Being cynical.
And so in particular, what pop culture promotes through these movies that we're mentioning is the leaving of our culture, so to speak, our busyness culture. And in a sense, you're still doing things, but you're getting rest.
Yes.
So you see it in Into the Wild, Secret Life of Walter Mitty, Eat, Pray, Love. What about Up? Up, the Pixar movie, where aside from the first 15 minutes, which are super sad, the old guy goes on an adventure, and that's kind of what heals him in a lot of ways from his downward kind of track. And he gets new friends and things to care about in life. And it all starts with him kind of being dragged out of his normal culture and cycle of life.
/ everything around him was getting super busy. They were building a development around his house.
Yeah. And he was getting in trouble with the law because he's losing his temper and hitting construction workers with his cane.
Don't do that, kid.
Yeah. So it's present in these things, and maybe we don't even know it because it's not super obvious. But this one that I'm thinking of now is super obvious, and that is The Big Lebowski.
The dude
who inspired his own sort of religion, dudism.
The dude abides.
Dudism, according to Wikipedia, is a religion, philosophy, or lifestyle inspired by the dude, the protagonist of the Coen brothers' 1998 film, The Big Lebowski. Dudism's stated primary objective is to promote a modern form of Chinese Taoism.
Sounds right.
Blended with concepts from the ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus, and presented as a style as personified by the character of Jeffrey the Dude Lebowski, played by Jeff Bridges. Now, look, the dude, if you've ever seen the movie, is all about being chill and doing not much. In fact, there's large swaths of the movie he's laying on a rug in his living room. He loves that rug, but he's all about just not doing much.
The rug really tied the room together.
It really did. In fact, he tells one character he spent his college years occupying various college buildings, like just occupying. But this character in this movie really it appeals to Buddhists because there's that side of Buddhism that's like very chill, very zen.
Yeah. Epicureanism, it is a tranquil, modest philosophy base. And so, yeah, it definitely fits with their description. He has access at times to a lot of finer things in life, and he's just good with bowling, replacing the rug, and occasionally a beverage.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's really, he's a character who's all about this kind of rest. Maybe too much rest. Maybe a little much.
He could apply himself a bit more in a few different areas of his life.
You want to find a happy medium, right? As pastors, we would say, well, God wants you to work where he's put you. Like, he'll lead you to your job, and he wants you to work hard with your job, but there's limits to it where you make your own limits and say, no, I need to take my Sabbath rest.
Yes.
Let's talk about pop culture as rest. So this would be when I reach my limit, when my anxiety's high and I'm tired or I've just had busy. What do I go to in pop culture to help relax me? And so do you have anything that comes to your mind when you think of what do you go to relax, to get down from the busyness cycle?
Something that has started probably over the past 5 years or so has been like, it's been a long day. I don't want to start something new. Let's rewatch an episode of The Office or Parks and Rec. Yeah. So like shows that are more humor based, but I also already know all the punchlines and all the main hits. And so I don't really have to be heavily invested. I'll know like, oh, this is the part where Ron throws away the vegan bacon and it'll make me laugh.
As well he should. That's not bacon.
And compares people at Whole Foods to like going to a zoo.
Well, it's very similarly for the last, I don't know how many years, before bedtime, I often watch Friends on Nick at Night. And like, look, there's not an episode of Friends I haven't seen parts of at least 20 times. And I know it. I know most of them by heart. I know what's about to happen, but there's just something about watching that before I go to bed that puts me in this relaxing place where it's partially nostalgic. It's partially, I think it's funny. Mm-hmm. I like the acting and the characters. And listen, Friends ran long enough where it ran too long because it was a big deal. And there are parts of it that are like, wow, that didn't hold up, which we've talked about before. Or that just wasn't that funny when they wrote it because it went too long and they ran out of ideas. But it's still, there's a charm to it. And I think it's this idea, and why I like to watch it before I go to bed is there's this rest connected to something familiar, something that I enjoyed when I first saw it. And then as I rewatched it, I just enjoy it. And it puts me in this comfortable place.
Now, the downside with like rewatching some of these nostalgia things, and like for some people it'd be video gaming, which at times it has been for me, is you veg out too much.
Yeah.
And like, it's not really a beneficial rest. It's just extra screen time that still keeps you up at a certain level. It doesn't let you fully decompress and come back down.
Yeah. The weird thing about video gaming is I can't do it like when I was young. And it doesn't matter what kind of game. So they make the old Nintendos and Super Nintendo things where you can jailbreak them and get all the games. And even those, when I'm playing nostalgic games or even new games that I might be interested in, I can't do it like when we could just pull all-nighters and just play and play and play and play. Now I'll play for 30, 40 minutes at the most a game. And I always hit this wall now of what am I doing? Like I know where it ends. I know where this goes nowhere. So what do I do? I'm going to beat the game, but why? Why am I doing? I hit these where I feel like a grumpy old man. I hit these walls.
Meaningless, says the teacher. Everything is utterly meaningless.
There's nothing new under the sun, Cody. And I cannot continue playing Rocket League. 1, because there's nothing new under the sun, but 2, because these teammates are killing me. Learn how to play. Anyways, other ways that pop culture exists as rest was, and I've talked about this several times. Growing up for me wasn't always easy, and I faked sickness a lot. Sometimes I was really sick, but when I stayed home, I had a certain pattern. Someone reminded me today or sometime this past week when we were taking this rest, someone reminded me about how, in fact, I think it was David Allen, who I referenced earlier, is he reminded of you watch Price is Right at 10 a.m. Before I started watching movies.
Oh, yeah.
If I was up early enough, if I didn't go back to sleep after I didn't go to school, you would watch Price is Right. That was must-see television when you stayed home from school, at least for my generation.
Still was. If you're sick, you're watching The Price is Right.
And then after The Price is Right was over, we would move on to, and I just feel like I should say that and say rest in peace to Bob Barker, because Bob Barker was a wonderful human being by all accounts, and everything you hear about Bob Barker. And in that documentary about the guy who gamed the system on Price is Right, there was this whole section about how awesome Bob Barker was, where he's doing these interviews saying, I just love what I do. And you can tell he truly loves it.
From Springfield,
Missouri, right? Close to where we're at.
He mentions one of the local high schools our team plays in an interview.
Yeah. So it was awesome. Price is Right was great. But then I would watch these movies, and I've talked about this before. There was like a general rotation. Goonies, of course, the original Star Wars trilogy, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, The Burbs. We talked about that a lot when we did the rewatch, the Be Kind rewind on The Burbs. The Sandlot at a later, as I got older, was a movie that would make it into that rotation. And these were all movies that had like these hallmarks in it for me.
Benny the Jet Rodriguez.
The misfit friend group, right? Whether you were the main character was the misfit, or there was misfits in the group, but they were your friends. They were the group. There was always like low risk adventure involved usually. And I don't know why that's soothing to us, but maybe that's soothing because it was in some of the movies we talked about earlier. And then there were these other things that were going on in it. I don't know why kindly old people are a part of this sometimes, but like in The Sandlot, right? You got the misfit friends, but always good times. Low risk adventures, kindly old people that you thought were scary. That's a trope, but it's
James Earl Jones is not scary.
No, but they thought he was.
How dare they?
It's the same trope in Monster Squad.
Same trope in Home Alone.
Goonies, it's sort of sloth related. He starts off, he looks scary, but you find out he's not. So like, I don't know what makes these movies all have some of these things that are relaxing and are peaceful to me. As I got older, a movie that I watch a lot now on repeat, this is kind of a go-to for me, which I don't do this much anymore. Most of these movies, I don't do this anymore. I don't go back and watch them.
Kick rocks, Goonies.
No, I mean, I still love the movie. It's just not something I don't, when I get bored now, I don't generally go to movies anymore. But there is one that I still do that I find I rewatch a lot, and that's Groundhog Day.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Remember the Titans.
No, why would it be Remember the Titans?
Because that's a great movie.
I mean, it's good. I wouldn't call it great.
It's great to rewatch.
Denzel's great.
Denzel's phenomenal. And I won't hear otherwise.
Okay. For me, it's Groundhog Day. I think Groundhog Day is a masterpiece of a movie. I think it's Bill Murray's best work. And I think there's something about the story that's deep while also being lighthearted and funny, but while also being really, really deep and morose at times. It has all these things. It's like life. There's something calming about that movie for me. And then, of course, there's the whole romance factor, which, you know, it kind of goes rom-com at the end.
The Princess Bride would be on my list because
literally
the kid's homesick. And it is grandpa trying to get the kid to wind down and go to bed.
Mm-hmm. Kindly old person.
Yeah.
in the movie. Never Ending Story would have been my generation's version before Princess Bride. Although Princess Bride is great. Here's some other common movies that I just kind of want to go down the list here and mention the things that they have in common. There's a movie called Secondhand Lions.
I was going to mention that one because these guys retire.
Yeah, Michael Caine, Robert Duvall, and their grandson comes to live with them. And it has kindly grandparents you think were scary. He's afraid of them at first. Low risk adventure is a part of the story.
Their great nephew or something.
Oh, yeah, whatever. They were more like grandparents.
Well, they don't call him grandpa.
There's soothing morality in the movie. Like he goes on he has this big speech to the kid at one point where there's about good and evil and how good always wins. That it's worth fighting for. The good's always worth fighting for. And I don't know, it's kind of hokey, but at the same time, there's something really soothing and restful about watching a movie like that.
Thank you, Haley Joel Osment.
I was thinking, thank you, Robert Duvall, Michael Caine, but Haley Joel did fine.
I was going to say, we've mentioned them. I was going to throw in Haley.
So it's funny how a lot of these movies that are my go-tos as restful movies have a lot of these same qualities. The misfit friends, the kindly old people, the low-risk adventure, the soothing morality kind of involved in them. What about Billy Madison? You didn't think I was going there. But look.
I assume you would.
Misfit friends, soothing morality, right?
Is it soothing?
Yes.
Is it?
Billy is presented as the force of good in the movie, even though he's kind of wild. He parties too much. But look, who else is going to get the company? Not the dude who's his dad's right-hand man, who's a jerk. It's Billy. Billy's the good-hearted character in the movie. Has low-risk adventures, right? Fake penguins. A kindly old Chris Farley, not so old, who you think was scary at first, but he's not. It's a reach. I know it's a reach.
It's a big reach.
But there's something relaxing about it.
No.
I think there is. There's something restful about the absurdity of that movie where you can turn on Billy Madison and look, this is not a heavy movie at all. It's cotton candy and it's absurd and there's no stakes really. And it's just you can just kind of lose yourself in that movie.
And that's what I would call vegging out. You go too far.
Okay.
And you don't get the full calm down.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
That would be one of those negative aspects or negative movies like teens are constantly sleeping.
But is Ferris painted as a negative person in that movie for taking the day of rest or the days of rest as the principal reminds us? No, he's presented as a hero. In fact, the overall mission statement of the film is what he says. He says, life goes pretty fast. If you don't slow down every once in a while, you might miss it.
I think it's still presented more as teen angst.
Save Ferris. Okay. What does pop culture have to say about rest overall? We've pretty much been all over it, positive and negative.
I have one thing.
Okay. Is it different than just culture?
Yeah. Well, it's pop culture now for a generation much younger than us. Mm-hmm. And that is, I literally have talked to multiple kids this school year. I ask them what their likes are. I ask about music. I ask about movies, TV shows, books, the usual suspects, as the kids say. And yet they're like, I'm not into that. I don't even music. What are you talking about? That's weird to me.
They're not into music.
Not into music. Not into music.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah, that's strange.
Not in.
What are they into?
Not into movies. Not into Netflix shows. Not into Stranger Things. All I do is either watch YouTube or TikTok videos.
Oh no. Oh no.
I mean, hey, there's some.
Speaking of vegging out,
there's some very creative people on TikTok.
Yes,
and
there is.
YouTube.
Yeah.
And there are even some videos geared towards your physical and mental well-being. But for a lot of kids, especially when it's unstructured, especially if they get to keep their phones at night, they'll stay up all hours of the night and just go down the rabbit hole of TikTok videos because they're never ending.
Oh, yeah.
And so literally I ask a kid, how much sleep do you get on average? Well, I mean, most of the time I'm not falling asleep till after 3.
Oh.
And school starts at 8. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is not a perfect thing, but like the base of the pyramid, which is like shelter, clothing, food, sleep, your basic needs, is foundational, I think, across a lot of different modalities and a lot of different thought processes, that if you are missing one or more of those things, it's a lot harder to have self-actualization or fulfillment of your calling, your higher calling. It's almost impossible to thrive in that environment when you're missing one or more of those. And for a generation, I think that pop culture has pushed us to, well, everyone is creative. Everyone can be famous, like these TikTok and YouTube personalities that are big. And, well, everyone's watching these videos. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, there was the old saying, like, if your friends jumped off a cliff, would you jump off a cliff? Well, maybe the cliff's not that deep or noticeable at first, and maybe we're just rolling downhill together, and we don't realize how far back it is and how hard of a climb it is to get back up.
Man. And then we're back to where we were when we're in the middle of this large uncontrolled experiment. With our younger generations especially. And that's worrisome because, I mean, for us, we had things that were like appointment television. I remember in middle school, we would come into the cafeteria on Monday and, did you see Saturday Night Live? Oh, yeah, the host was this guy. What about this skit? So there were things that we had to be in front of our TVs at a certain time to watch them. But then when they were over, they were over. Whereas now, I think what kids talk about are these TikTok videos and things, and you're right. It's just bottomless. You just keep cycling and cycling and cycling, and as a matter of fact, all these social media apps and sites, they all work on an algorithm that tries to keep you scrolling.
And I mean, even Netflix and the other streaming platforms, it's really easy to say, you know what? Stranger Things might have dropped at this time, but we can finish it by 2 a.m, and there's no issue there. I do think that before there was emphasis on more of a balance, because like I grew up where you're a couple generations into consoles. It's not Atari and Duck Hunter. Like the N64, different versions of the Game Boy, PlayStation's out. These things are there, but like you still had to go outside and play for a certain amount of time. You still had to do things with your family. Sports was really big when I was a kid. So like, did you watch the game last night? Michael Jordan went beast. Once you went to bed, you didn't have any electronics in your room.
Right.
There was nothing to tempt you. It was, now it's time to sleep.
Yeah, you know what? When I stayed up, I was reading comic books. I was doing the flashlight under the covers thing and reading comics. That was my version of it. But how long can you do that, really? Surely I stayed up too late some nights, but that didn't happen a lot. I don't know, man. I think we should encourage our listeners. Let's combat it in our own very small way. Mm-hmm. When you listen to the pod, turn off your phone. Like if you got your earbud in or you're listening to it on a speaker, turn off your phone and make it inaccessible to you and just listen to the pod. Because I wonder how many people listen to our pod while they're still doing stuff on their phone. Surely some people are.
Yeah. So technology, phones, tablets, they're not inherently evil. It's just the emphasis we place on them.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's really easy to become addicted to something because we get that dopamine release. Mm-hmm. You just keep wanting it, and your brain is trying to constantly doing a balance act because you're trying to have a balance in all those chemicals that are being released, and it becomes chaotic and stressful. And every once in a while, it's good to unplug.
Our pods generally run about an hour and 15 minutes to anywhere from an hour and 45 minutes, somewhere in there usually. What if, like in our own little way, we could help you out with this, your rest? When you listen to the pod, do it screenless. You put the phone away, somehow listen to it on your earbuds, whatever you do. Just make the time that you listen to the pod. If you listen to the car, you're doing it screenless anyways. And that's fine too. I know a lot of people listen to podcasts when they're commuting.
Don't close your eyes in the car, please.
Don't close your eyes. But we'd love it if the pod was a place where you took some rest to just listen. And then maybe when the pod's over, even then, just give us 45 seconds to a minute of not doing anything right away. Just sit and think for a minute.
Some mindfulness, grounding, coping skill would be great.
Nothing would make me happier to know that our pod was a little part of that for you. Yeah. So rest is on our mind, and I hope rest is on your mind. Tell us what you thought about this. What is your pop culture go-to that gives you rest? Is it music? Is it movies? Is it books? For my oldest daughter, she loves reading.
Music's a huge thing for me. Like,
yeah,
I used to fall asleep to music.
Me too. I used to fall asleep listening to the orchestral scores of movies. I loved listening to Indiana Jones soundtracks as I fell asleep. Just loved it. So tell us about that. What did you think about this? What do you think about the concept of rest? Let us know on the social media posts for this episode. And as always, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Please subscribe. Please rate the podcast and then share it with your friends on your social media timelines. That helps us out a lot. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time.
Pop culture pastor. Pop culture pastor.